on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hey, I feel all right now.
Hey, I feel all right now.
Do you feel like I do right now?
Do you feel like I do right now?
Motivated,
Motivated,
sky high,
sky high,
rock steady,
rock steady.
oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
I can do it.
I can do it.
You can.
Good morning and welcome to America's Web Radio. And this is David's Pick, and we always have a veteran on telling what they did. And generally it's a Vietnam veteran, but I started something about 2 months ago because of my best friend that's a Vietnam veteran. And I think our guest today has a little bit of commonality with my friend J. Roy. J. Roy was hit and sprayed with Agent Orange, which he's had complications from since he returned from Vietnam. And a couple of months ago, he had to have part of his tongue removed because of a cancerous tumor on his tongue. And as he was in surgery, I was about to start this show, and I decided, let's just take a moment of silence and just thank God for our veterans and all those that have served and are serving. I have a son that's serving right now, and how important our military, past, present, and future will be and is. And so with that, let's just take a moment, and I'll be right back. And we have a great guest on, Vietnam veteran Mike Roman. So if everybody will just stay tuned, we'll be back right after a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And we've got Mike on the line, and we welcome him. He's a member of the JC Veterans Association, and as always, our good friend and wonderful director, Rick White, and he's the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And Rick just does an outstanding job. And I challenge anybody to find a nicer retired colonel than Rick White. He is fabulous, and he and Paul have just done a wonderful job of keeping our memories attuned to the wonderful people that are from Georgia that have served our country so well over so many years and in different capacities. And we certainly salute the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And if you haven't been there, it's right across the street from the Capitol in the Floyd Building, and it's a great place to go. So with that being said, let's get to our guest, Mike Roman. And Mike's on the line with us. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. How are you, David?
I'm doing fine. I'm charged up. Another great Thursday, and another great guest, courtesy of Mr. White. So,
I have a little story about him.
Uh-oh.
No, I think you're going to like it. I was not a combat soldier, but I was in Vietnam for 19 months, and for the last 7 months, I put men on guard duty with empty M14s. Because officers were getting shot and fragged for the lack of esprit de corps in Cam Bay, my second duty station. I'm real sensitive to criticisms of the Vietnam War. Because of the criticisms we were getting back home, they thought it was best to put men in combat zones with empty M14s. But the Johns Creek Veterans Association was asked to preview Ken Burns' piece on the Vietnam War. And I went with the then president, Vic Ackerman, and his girlfriend, Alice Como. And we were sitting there, and about 2 minutes into the movie, I just couldn't sit still anymore. I had to get up and walk around. And I don't know what happened. I spaced out. And I felt this hand on my shoulder. And it was Rick. Rick looked at me and he says, "You too, huh?" And I said, "Rick," I said, I just can't take this. This guy's lying about what we did, and how it happened, and I just don't know what to do about it, Rick. He says, "We'll get through it, Mike." That's the kind of person Rick is.
Absolutely. Rick is the epitome, in my opinion, of the Good Samaritan. He's there to help all the time, and he's just an incredible gentleman, and officer and a gentleman, and he takes it to the nth degree. And
he does.
I appreciate his friendship more than I could ever express to him. He's just a great guy. No.
And his son is almost a spitting image of him in more ways than one, too.
I haven't met his son. We've had some, I can't remember causes, but he's also helped. I think I've gotten a couple of emails from him over the year. And and Rick should be extremely proud of him, and I know he is, and the job that he's doing here in Georgia.
Yep.
And, we play a spot, and we'll play it during this in a minute, about, and I always say this, and for those that are tired of hearing me say it, I think his son is partially in the recruitment business, and, I think we have the best military in the world, not only from strength now because of President Trump, but also because of the people that are serving. And like I said, I'm extremely proud of my young son that is a major in the Air Force. And the Air Force was kind enough, after him being out of country for 6 years, that they have let him. I don't know who let the guy back into the United States, but no, they let him in, and he's proudly serving in Shaw Air Force Base in
Awesome.
Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm thankful he's back and safe, and I'm just so very, very proud of him. And any parent that has a relative, a son, a daughter, whoever in the military, or has a good friend, they should be extremely proud of them. And we go a step further and say that if you're listening and you're a young man, young woman graduating from high school or college, and you haven't decided what you want to do, or if you're a grandparent or parent listening, suggest the military. The military is incredible, fantastic, and they've got so many opportunities. And with all the opportunities in the military, I can almost guarantee you that you'll walk out of the military, unless you decide to career it, which is great too. That's what my son's doing. But if you walk out of the military, you will be wanted by so many different businesses. The training that you get in the military is just beyond words.
It's second to none.
It's second to none, exactly. So with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a friend. His name is Man Bui. He's a Vietnamese refugee. Came to the United States with his mother and father when the ambassador put them on the last helicopter, and it was the true last helicopter out of Vietnam. It wasn't the one from the roof you saw in the movies and all that kind of stuff. It was the last genuine helicopter out of the embassy area. Man has 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Both of his sons have graduated from West Point.
Outstanding.
And, it's it's good. As a Vietnam veteran, I feel so proud to say that I know this refugee who has two sons that have graduated from West Point. I mean, an immigrant coming to the United States and hearing that, that's all they should know, that there is a debt that everyone has to pay to their country. And man, Bowie and his family exemplify that.
You know, there have been a lot of rocks thrown at the United States about our policy towards immigrants. And, you know, yet many of them, I try to compare myself to some of when we had the Vietnamese boat people and all of that. If I'd gone to Vietnam and tried to set up a business, I admit to the fact I don't think I would have made it.
No.
And yet these Vietnamese, I knew a situation, and this was many years ago, obviously, but where it was like a whole family, like 12 people in a one-bedroom apartment. And, they sacrificed everything to come to this country. And in some ways, I feel very proud of the country. The country, we didn't let them down. They worked their butts off to do whatever had to be done. And a lot of people don't realize it's still happening. And they're working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. And yet they are so proud to be here. And our country still comes through. It's a land of opportunity. And you can have a radio station if you want it. And if you want it bad enough, you can call me, and you can have a whole thing. No.
Well, I come from kind of a mixed family. My mama's family came over in the 1600s as indentured servants, and they've done very well. They own a lot of land. The current family owns a lot of land in Mississippi, and they've served our country in every fight from the French and Indian Wars all the way through. 4 of my mom's brothers served in World War II. I have family members that served in Vietnam as well. One of them should have his name on the wall. He was an MP. His name was Bobby Earl Easterling. Anderson was his daddy's name, but I don't know what happened to him. But his mother took him in and raised him as one of her own with another man. But Bobby Earl was about 3 years or 4 years older than me, went to Vietnam as an MP. And Bobby Earl just wasn't paying attention one day and saw somebody drop a grenade into his Jeep, and he was a little slow getting out of the Jeep and had some damage to one of his legs. Went into the VA, and of course the VA doesn't treat the trauma. They treat it with drugs, and got addicted to it, and Bobby Earl overdosed and passed. And Bobby Earl's name should be on that wall. It wasn't like he didn't do anything to serve his country. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. It's sort of like the doctor that was in today on Doctor's Lounge, Dr. Hal Shears. We were talking after his show, and there's so many effects going on right now with the pandemic and so forth, and Vietnam veterans may have been fine when they got home, but here it is 50 years later or whatever, and they wake up one morning with PTSD, and our brains and our bodies and everything else, the things that people experienced in Vietnam can come back to, I don't like using the word haunt you, but for lack of better words, years and years later. And we're just now realizing that, and I think we're going to have not only a situation on our hands, and I'm no doctor by any stretch, but I do see things happening with folks in the pandemic, and I don't know, where down the road it's going to come back to affect. It may be worse than the pandemic itself. And in many cases, what you experienced or what Vietnam veterans that were in country experienced, in many ways or in some ways, was worse than the experience itself, as it welded its scene in your mind. Is that?
Yes.
Would you consider that a correct statement?
I really would, yes. As a matter of fact, I belong to a group called Vet Buds, and we met yesterday. And one of our guys was a Navy corpsman and lived in Vietnam with the Marines as a corpsman. He's now a psychologist and practices in the area. And we talked about that same idea. And what I asked him a direct question about was, do you think veterans understand death better than civilians? Because we have truly faced it. And he says, well, he doesn't really believe that statement because it's all individual. But, yeah, veterans have more of a chance to face that and come to grips with it than most civilians. And this COVID thing, it's less than 1% are dying, but everybody's afraid to live because they might die. But just think for one lousy minute, has anyone ever lived from the beginning? We're born to die. So why don't you face life, understand what you want to do, go on with it, and don't worry about dying because you're going to die one day anyway.
That's right. Nobody gets out of it alive.
So just live your life and enjoy it geez.
Well, it's I've been very blessed that veterans like yourself will put up with me. As I mentioned to you last night, they've labeled...
You do a service that few people can understand,
well,
David, and please don't feel belittled because you didn't go to Vietnam. There's no reason to feel that way.
Well, I raised my hand, and I did my 6 years, but like you said, I didn't go to Vietnam, and I never ever say that I did or that I've experienced what you all did. But I do appreciate and want people, as I mentioned to you when we talked earlier, it seems like I always learn something from whoever I'm interviewing. Even Submarine Mike taught me some stuff. And I would never admit to Roger Wise teaching me anything, but I love all of you guys, and we do a show called Remembering Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and the reason I do it is that it's amazing the people that if you went up to them on the street and what was Desert Shield? I don't know. And it was our last war, and I don't want.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't want people to forget that, or Afghanistan, or anything that our great military has done to keep us free.
Exactly. But World War II, a large population in the United States supported that. When Korea came, a whole lot less people got involved. And I don't know what the percentage of the population that served during the Korean War in Korea, but 5% of the available population served in Vietnam. 1% has served in Afghanistan and Iraq. 1%. So what? That's a much longer war. It's a much more grisly war. There's no jungle, but the environment is just as bad because of the heat. But 1% now supporting our country.
It's sickening.
It truly is.
I'll take on anybody that wants to be taken on regarding why. And my conclusion on why is our poor educational system that doesn't, if you went up to anybody today, and I don't mean to be getting into politics, but it's true. You go up to a kid today and you say, what is socialism? They wouldn't have a clue. Well, what leads to communism? They wouldn't have a clue. Well, what does the flag mean to you? Nothing. And I can't stand it. And I blame our educational system that, I was a patriot from the first grade, and we said the Pledge of Allegiance and one nation under God. And I think that our liberal politicians have tried to ruin the country, and we want to know why we are only looking at 1% serving, because they don't understand how wonderful this country is, and why would I join the military and die for my country? That seems sort of stupid. Or, why not burn the flag? It doesn't mean anything. And as I mentioned to you, I think I pray that I never drive up on or walk up on somebody messing with my flag. I don't know what I'll do. And it's a shame that we wouldn't have the problems in Portland and other areas that we have right now if the kids had been taught what patriotism is and how important the United States is. And I don't mean to be up on a soapbox, and I get criticized for talking too much, but Mike, you tell me what you think.
I totally agree. My dad's family, my dad's a first generation American. I've said that before. My mom's, family have gone back to the French and Indian Wars they fought. My uncles, my mom's brothers and sisters, were in the Army. My mom is an Army Air Corps nurse. My dad was a B-29 pilot in World War II. My uncle on my dad's mother's side came from Poland, was here for 2 months, spoke little English, joined the Army, and went to France. He was defending his new country. He'd only been in for 2 months.
Wow.
That doesn't exist anymore. And I fail to understand why more people can't understand that there is a duty. When you, as a citizen of these United States, you have a duty to protect and serve this country, regardless of what your politics are, regardless of what you think. We can't maintain being the best country in the world until we understand that we're the best country in the world. And I don't understand a better way of doing it than serving your country in some capacity.
It takes education. And
yes, it does.
So many, dedicating 3 pages to World War II does not teach anything. Dedicating 1 page in a history book to World War I doesn't teach anything. And
in a paragraph or 2 about Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's appalling. And,
you know what? I wish we could have taken cameras with us. and gone on to these villages and filmed what really goes on in these villages and sent it back, and Walter Cronkite or whoever would have the guts to show it. When we left, that country was better off than it was before we got there. Look at Vietnam now. It's incredible when you give those people a sense of understanding what their duties are to their country as well, and getting off their butts and doing it. Yeah, there's communism in Vietnam right now, but there's more capitalism than communism, and people don't understand that. The streets are now paved all throughout Vietnam. They weren't when I was there.
You got to eat the dirt, huh?
Yes, we did.
You know, and it breaks my heart, actually, because I see it day in and day out with almost every show that we do. And by the way, if you all want, if whoever's listening wants to become a part of this, just go to, and I want to thank the people that have become patrons and have given to the station to hear guests like Mike and shows like the Doctor's Lounge and all the rest. And I want to thank the people that have signed up to give 10, 15, 50 bucks a month, whatever it is. And we do appreciate it because that's what keeps us on the air. But, you know, it's, again, we have the most ability to learn almost anything. I am always amazed at, well, Google, yada-da-da-da, and it pops up, you know, the answer. Yep. And yet we're too lazy in many cases to look up the truth or look up a subject, and there in front of you on that screen is the answer, and you can dig into it more if you want to, and we're too lazy to do it. And it's now, like Hal Shear, Dr. Shear said on the show today, we have approximately 320 million experts on COVID-19. You know, but like he was pointing out, people have been worried about it, so they've gone on their computer and become experts unto themselves. And in, like he said too, in many ways, they know as much as the doctors do. If it's out there, it's out there, and you can read about it. But we can do that about Vietnam and World War II and what it means to be a patriot. And I wish people would.
Me too. But, you know, along that subject, I have been very fortunate. I had some of the best teachers in the world. I've had some of the, well, I know the best mentors in the world because they mentored me. You know, in the first one, my first mentor was Mrs. Brown when I went to kindergarten at Snow School in Dearborn, Michigan. Well, at first I grew up in Detroit on Tireman and Clover Lawn Avenue. Four houses in front of us, there was not one born an American in any of those homes. 5 houses down from my house, there may have been 1 or 2 American-born people because those were the kids my age. My mom and dad were the only, and my brother and I were the only ones born in America in that house. And we had my brother and I, one generation, mom and dad, another generation, my dad's father and my dad's mother, a third generation, and my grandmother's father, another generation. And the only generations born in the United States were my brother and I, and my mom and dad. That's the way it used to be. So, you know, you got educated about other people and other events. And I guess some people in education decided, well, that's not such a good thing. Why do we want others to learn about the horrors in other places? We'll just not teach any of that.
That's, you know, and along with our educational system comes the fact that parents today were not educated and haven't passed on. My dad, like yours, my dad was a naval commander, and served in World War II, and you know, he taught me the values, and I appreciate it, and I can't imagine. And this are the two things that we salute during this too, and that's we're very fortunate today to have our electronics. And although my son was in Germany, I could see him and talk to him while he was there, and I think back when my dad was serving, it would be. And my mom told me, and well, my mom and dad both told me, it would be anywhere from, at best, 4 weeks, and at worst, 2 months to get a letter back and forth. And, from one day to the next, many families during World War II didn't know whether their husband or wife were alive. And fortunately, by Vietnam, we had better communications, but still, there was some of that. And today, it's great to be able to communicate with your loved one wherever they are in the world. And we just have to be very thoughtful of our veterans and the blessings that we've had as far as the country goes, and our military and our veterans. And like I said, I don't want to preach. We're going to take a quick break, Mike, and
Alrighty.
I need to get off my soapbox anyway, or I'll get a complaint from one of your friends. We'll be back right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I am Roger B., host of the Locked and Loaded Show on America's Web Radio. Be sure to join us live every Tuesday.
Mike, we doing okay?
We're doing well. I do want to mention some of the people that have helped me.
Oh, sure.
It goes all the way back to Mrs. Brown, teaching me the difference between a D and a B.
Yeah. Mine goes back to Miss Thompson. When I was in kindergarten. But sure, We'll do that.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
We'll come back and
I really enjoy what's going on now. This has been very good for me. Thank you.
Well, good. Glad you're enjoying it. And I hope, others are enjoying it too. They get to flush out some of their thoughts, Okay,
Yep.
We're coming back. And we're back on David's Pick on America's Web Radio, and we've got our friend Mike Roman on with us today. And Mike is a Vietnam veteran. And now, Mike, we talked off the air for a second, and I'll explain the situation in that Mike needed help. So he has had a variety of mentors. And Mike, how about telling us about some of them?
Well, thanks for that opportunity. I see myself as the most fortunate person in the world. The first person really that took me under my wing was my dad's mother's father. He was a captain in the Prussian cavalry, and didn't speak English. Spoke High German to my grandmother. Didn't speak to anyone in the family other than my grandmother because we were all below his station. But he and I played a game during the summer when I was maybe 5 or 4. And he was a carpenter and made things in my grandmother's garage, and she sold them for him. But he had a workbench that I now have in my garage that doesn't have a nail in it, and it is as sturdy today as it was when he made it in the 20s or 30s. We played a game, and the game was he'd open the back porch door for me, unlock it, so it was a screen door I could go through and go to the garage. The garage was open, and his tool table was there, and it had drawers in it. And I'd open the drawers and take his tools out and line them up in order. At least I thought they would be ordered. And the game was he'd come out with his cane to the garage, never said a word to me, but would point to one of his tools that I had not put in the proper size position and point some other place for it. And then my job was to put it in the right place. And then he'd stand back and look at it, nod, and then take his cane and point back to the drawer like to say, now put everything back, you dumb, stupid kid. And I don't know how long we played that game, but it's etched in my memory.
Oh, that's great.
Couldn't communicate, but we had fun together. And then Mrs. Brown in grade school. I was a bit dyslexic and still sometimes am. But she taught me the difference between a B and a D. And if you hold your right hand up and hold your thumb up, that's a B. And if you put your thumb down and hold your little finger up, that's a D. She taught me that, and I figured out how to look at other letters like that, know the difference between a B and a D or whatever. She just took time to teach that to me. Then there was Mrs. Belargin. My mom had a toxic pregnancy with my third brother, and Mrs. Belargin was a young teacher, and Dad had, his job at Ford Motor Company. He was in the pilot plant and going through the changeover engineering for the new models. And Mrs. Belargin would come after school and cook dinner for us and all that kind of stuff. And my dad would come home, Mrs. Belargin go back home. But she was my first grade teacher at Tin Ike and Dearborn. And what a woman. I mean, a very nice person, going out of her way to help us out. And then there was St. Martha's. I went to parochial school. I was raised Catholic. And Sister Thomasine, Sister Selma, I mean, just so many of those women, saints, would take time with me. If I'd ask for another book to read or something like that, they just went out of their way to help me. And then there was Father Borkowitz, the parish priest. He made me an altar boy a year before most kids in the grade school got to be altar boys, because he and I spoke Polish. And at one of his masses, I think I was in the 8th grade, we came back after Mass, and I asked Father Borkowitz, how come your wine smells like my dad's scotch? And he put his finger up to his lips and like, shh. Which to me was incredible. He was drinking scotch when he should have been drinking wine, but asked me to keep that secret. And then there was St. Xavier. Dad moved the family to Louisville, and I went to grade school. And Mr. Leon Dunnigan, we had discipline in the school, and we got detention tickets if we misbehaved. And Mr. Dunnigan gave me 2 detention tickets. And the first one was, I thought I was just asking a good question. And not being real familiar with the way a lot of Southerners talk. Mr. Dunnigan, I had him for health. And he said how important it was to crack the window when you were making long drives. And I raised my hand. I said, Mr. Dunnigan, wouldn't it be easier just to roll the window down instead of cracking it? Because you have to crack it, you have to fix it. And I was asking a genuine question. Mr. Dunnigan walked over to me, didn't say a word, wrote a detention ticket and gave it to me for being a smartass in class. In my senior year, I had Mr. Dunnigan for English. And at that time, I was, trying to show everyone how smart I was. And he asked me to give the definition of harangue. And I said, a type of pie filling, as in lemon meringue pie. And he walked over to me, didn't say a word, took out a detention ticket, and laid it on my desk. Well, I left there, went to, we moved to South Bend. My dad had me enrolled at Notre Dame. I didn't know. I was going to go to the University of Louisville to help my next-door neighbor who was our star football player. His name was Ira Glass. Ira played with the Steelers for a while, but Ira needed some help getting through University of Louisville, and I was going to be paid to be his assistant to, I guess, take the test for him so he could get through the University of Louisville. But that was just incredible with the way that all happened. Went to South Bend, told Brother Raphael I didn't want to go to Notre Dame, and I wanted to see some of the rest of the world. He got me into Indiana University. And there was a teacher there, an English teacher, and I cannot remember her name right now. But I got all F's my first semester, and I got kicked out of Indiana University Extension School in South Bend. And when she wrote me a letter saying, you're probably going to get expelled, but if that happens, come see me and I'll help you write a letter, get back in. And she did.
Let's sort of get back to your career or your Vietnam days.
All right,
with one of the great memories that you have of your mentors. Can you remember times that you were there or in Vietnam? Maybe they were good times or maybe they were bad times, but that you thought back over, okay, I'm here, but I remember Ms. Brown, or I remember this person or that person. Did you think about that, and did it help you through Vietnam?
Oh yes, Mr. Dunnigan. Yes, Mr. Dunnigan was a special memory, and I thought about him often. And what he taught me was, it's okay to joke, but be sure you're ready for the consequences. There was always whatever. All of my experiences always taught me a lesson. Mr. Dunnigan was always on my mind in Vietnam. And anyway, I had the best support when I was in the comm center. Talmadge Moon was a CW3 in our comm center. Sam Albert was a short little E5 that came to us. I was part of the crypto maintenance team, and we had a problem that we were trying to solve, and we had these high-top desks, and the crypto men and some of the teletype guys were sitting around the table trying to decide what to do about this problem. And Sam Albert was maybe 5'5" or 5'6", came to the table, and me being a smart aleck, he said, I see you guys are working on this problem. And I said, who in the hell said that? And Sam Albert was standing on the other side of the table, but his hat was above the table. And so, make a long story short, Sam had me doing some extra duty because he kicked an E8 out of the comm center who was an alcoholic and took over the maintenance of that shift. He and I are still in touch. Talmadge Moon and I are still in touch. Richard Amoroso, who was our teletype man, and I are still in touch. John McLean, who was my cube mate, I did my extension in Vietnam. He was going to go home to get married, and he told me he wasn't going to get married until I came home from Vietnam. His wife didn't talk to me for 5 years. But John and I are still in touch. And, we solved problems, not as one man taking on the world, but as a group. John was the only fixed teletype maintenance man in our area.
Mike, we need to take another break right quick, and we'll come back with Mike Roman. And as I say every show too, you are part of the biggest fraternity in the world, and you still are. And the same way with any woman, she's part of the biggest sorority, and that's our military. We'll be back with Mike Roman right after this.
The Locked and Loaded Show on America's Web Radio. Be sure to join us live every Tuesday at 1500 hours for the latest in gun news, gun products, gun politics, and other gun-related stuff. That's Tuesday,
If you live to serve
1500
and want
hours.
to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at GoArmy.com.
And I want to take this opportunity to once again say that we appreciate all the work that Colonel Rick White does. He's the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And Rick had asked me to make a special announcement regarding the induction ceremony that was to be held November the 7th, as always, in Columbus, Georgia. But it's been postponed, and a definite new date has not been set yet. And this is obviously due to our coronavirus. But as soon as Rick and Paul and whoever else is involved, the board sets a date, we'll be sure to let you know. And the public is invited. You can buy a ticket. And I understand, as Rick White says, the only thing they don't furnish is a box of Kleenex. You have to bring your own box of Kleenex as you're listening to all the great stories, like the story that we've been hearing from Mike and many other veterans of all wars, and the inductees always have a great story. And Mike, I'm going to go ahead right now and ask you the hardball question that I mentioned to you last night, I believe it was. But can you name one veteran that can tell one story?
Thought about that last night, and I think the answer is no.
I tell you what, if somebody hadn't done this, and there are a lot of veterans, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are a lot of veterans that don't like to tell their stories, or they don't like to talk about what they did in Vietnam or Korea or World War II or whatever. But you get 6 veterans at a table eating, and it's hard for one to not bring up one story. Well, when I was in, or when I was this, or I was that, and then somebody else one-ups them, and then it turns into a one-upsman conversation of who has the toughest story to tell. Well, you wouldn't believe, and I've heard that a few hundred times. But this is the great thing about the fraternity of the military, and that's that 2 veterans can sit down and talk, and there's, in my opinion, and I'm certainly not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or I'm just a poor dummy from Texas, but you know, it's being able to talk to somebody else that can relate to what you're saying. And you know, I can relate to the World War II barracks where I did basic and AIT at Fort Ord, and we all know about those World War II shacks. And it just, you know, we were, as I was at Fort Ord, I was always jealous. They'd built new dormitories literally for people that were coming in for basic. And why didn't I get one of those? You know? But anyway,
you know, let me add to your comments there. I told about Sam Albert and Richard Amoroso and Talmadge Moon, and there's 2 or 3 others that we rag on each other mercilessly. And if you were an outsider and you heard Richard Amoroso going after Sam Albert, or Sam Albert going after Richard Amoroso, you'd think you can't leave those 2 guys alone in a room. But Richard had Sam's back, and Sam had Richard's back. And, you know, that group, that core group, there's emails every day, one calling the other some kind of an idiot for believing in something. I'm collecting all of those, and I'm going to write a book. It says, and the book is going to be something like how 2 people can be assholes and still love each other. Because I think one of the most important things that is not understood right now is, there's a division. But guess what? That's an ideological division. Doesn't mean you have to hate that person. Doesn't mean you have to dislike that person. Just means you should listen to him or her.
Yeah.
Because you might pick up something new that you didn't understand before. And that's what Mrs. Brown taught me. That's what Mrs. Belargin taught me. That's what Sister Selma, Sister Thomasine taught me. And, that all has added to what I have learned. George Plossel is the apex person who developed this process with Joseph Orlicky and Ollie White about material requirements planning, which is set the whole manufacturing industry in a new direction. Because you can plan what you need to make. You can plan the machines that need to go on. You can plan to plan. And guess what? Joseph Orlicky didn't get along too well with Ollie White. And Ollie White and George Plossel were best of friends until Ollie started fooling around with his secretary. They still worked together very well, but they just weren't friends. We've lost that as a nation.
Mm-hmm. You're in Michigan, right? Or you grew up in Michigan?
I grew up in Detroit, yes.
Okay, well, I've got a Michigan story. When I was in basic, we had he was huge. Michigan football player was in my platoon. And I can't remember his name, but he was a big boy. Not the brightest bulb in the box, but a big boy. And so we were lined up. We had double-timed over to the medical center, and we were getting our shots. And I'm sure that in your career you got a few air shots.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So anybody that's out there listening, they know what an air shot is. So we're lined up to get our first dose of something, whatever it was, to get ready to, if we were called on, we could go wherever in the world, I guess. But anyway, so we're all lined up, and the medic says, okay, you're barely going to feel this. And he shot a blast across the room. And we walk in the door, and this Michigan football player faints, dead away, thinking about, oh my God, they're going to shoot me with that thing, So, I mean, he went down like a folded tent, and we couldn't help but, like you said, you start ragging on a guy. So he was in the lower bunk in our barracks and upstairs, and the old thing of hand in warm water, that's true. And we gave that guy just, but he was always, I mean, he could have probably taken on the whole platoon if he had wanted to, but
yes.
We gave him something to think about, but it was funny. But when he fainted as we were getting our air shots, and here I am about a fourth of his size, and I just took in the arm and kept on moving, And anyway, so you can appreciate the air shots, though.
I got to say a little bit about my DI when I was in basic training. His name was Leo Elliott, and he was a very good DI. He demanded excellence, and that's all you got to say. Mm-hmm. The first assembly, and they give you your caps and stuff. This is your cover. Mm-hmm. You never go outside without your cover. Mm-hmm. Well, first assembly, guess what?
You forgot your cover.
I forgot my cover. You know what that meant? I was our battalion's road guard. Mm-hmm. I was a little bit overweight. When I got there, I was about 5'6.5", and being in the 3rd platoon, I had to run up to where the 1st platoon was, and
With
catch
the guide on.
And then when the last platoon would pass, I'd have to run back to my station, and then only to run up to the next stop sign to road guard there.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated basic, I was 5'9", weighed 125 pounds.
That's
thanks to Leo Elliott.
Well, we couldn't eat until we went through the horizontal ladder.
Oh.
Do you remember those?
Oh yeah.
So we got to be scratching some people's memories right now, and this is what it's all about, and I love it. And the military, no matter, I'm fortunate. I graduated from college, and I had a lot of other experiences as an EMT and so forth, but there's no experience like the military, and I don't think there ever will be. And as I mentioned to you the other day when we were talking, is that, every now and then I'll be sitting and a light will go on in my peanut brain that now I understand why they made us do that. At the time, why in the hell are we doing this? But, 50 years later, the light comes on, and our military has had so much time to perfect everything and to know how to get somebody's attention and turn, like they say, turn a boy into a man. And the folks that don't go through military training, I feel sorry for, because it winds up being the best experience you can have in life, in my opinion.
Well, I went through AIT, and let me go back to basic for one comment. I scored real high. I enlisted and had a choice of branch and whatever in school. And there was some talk about sending me to OCS. And I had to sit down with Sergeant Elliott, and he explained to me, after you go to AIT and you get about, 3 or 4 weeks into it, and you go to your company commander and tell your company commander you want to go to OCS, and they're going to send you to OCS. Well, I think that's true for most classes, but I was in crypto maintenance. And after you got through your basic electronics training, you got classified, and we had top secret clearances because we had with crypto access. I did not know at the time, but we weren't going anywhere. We were going through crypto school. But anyway, Sergeant Elliott took a liking to me. And I'd always, what seemed like always, but I'd get called down to his office, and I'd have to stand outside his office. His door was open. He'd be talking to another DI. And one time he said, well, and I was standing outside the door, and I knew he knew I was there. And they were talking about the bivouac. And Sergeant Elliott said, do you think anybody's going to be smart enough to climb up in the trees and ambush us when we come in? That's all I had to hear. So when we went on bivouac, I made my squad take off their boots and put them under a blanket with the boots outside the tent. And we climbed up into the tree without shoes. And we got behind some of the stumps in the trees, and it was springtime, so some of the leaves were out.
Mike, I'm going to have to interrupt you. We're out of time. And
oh, my goodness.
I've got one last question for you. Will you come back?
Yes, sir.
All right. And thank you for being on, and we look forward to the next time you'll visit on America's Web Radio. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
America's Web Radio.